Greeting, writers. Many of you asked me in class yesterday, how do you start a news story? Because this question was so frequent, so common, so pervasive, our mini lesson for today is going to be on how do you start a news story. I want to make sure you all have the tools that you need to help you write today. So there are a few different moves that we are going to look at. Some of them should be familiar to you, such as telling an anecdote or a little story or posing a question, and some may be new, such as starting with a quote or painting a picture of the setting for your reader. Let's take a look at our first example, posing a question. In an article called Big Question, Is Gaming Good for Kids? Author Joe Velez shows us how to start a news article with asking a question. He says, Gamers, have you ever noticed that you're the first person to spot animals at the zoo? Or if someone drops candy on the ground, you know exactly where every piece landed? That may be because you play video games. So by asking this question, he's obviously pointing out some of the benefits of playing video games. And this should be familiar to you all because we wrote position papers on this topic, but clearly gamers are more observant. Another strategy you might use is painting a picture of the setting. If we think back to the article about the I Promise school that LeBron James opened, we can see an example of this strategy at work. Remember the imagery we saw as we read the description of students parading through high fives and hugs from staffs, the music blaring, the compliments from the teachers, the smell of the breakfast buffet wafting through the hallways. This reader begins really by orienting us as readers into the place that will be the focus of the writing. So, this is great if you were writing about an event that you observed, maybe something that happened at recess. Another strategy that you can use is telling an anecdote. For example, in an article in News ELA titled Prison Inmates Helped High School Student with Tuition, now he's in college, the writer begins by giving a story about this young man, Cy Newsom Green, who was going through some hard times. They talked about his health problems that required a lot of medical treatment, his parents losing their jobs, which meant that he could no longer go to a school that he was attending, and it presented a lot of challenges for him going to college. So the reader's hooking us in with a story about the subject of this interview. And the last strategy, friends, we can look at is starting with a quote. And this is a really cool example that I have because this is an example from an article that was written in which I had a chance to be interviewed for. So this is for an organization called Dress for Success. And they started the article with You Got It, a quote from me, Miss Comic, back when I used to work as a career counselor. And they started off by saying, if you were going to ask me what you could do better, I have no answer. Dress for Success could not do this better. This enthusiastic response came to me from Siobhan Comic, a career counselor at Jewish Vocational Services. So clearly, the writer and the author of this is the executive director of this organization, and she puts together this newsletter. But she was trying to highlight the successes of her organization, and that quote seemed to really capture that sentiment, that feeling. All right, friends. So there are a few strategies that you have at your disposal to try to help you start your news article. So open up your news article in your writing Google Classroom. Remember, it's under the date April 13th. It's titled End of Unit Writing Project. And at this point, we're on step 4. We are starting to rehearse. So we're thinking about how will we hook our reader? What are the 5 W's that we'll address? What is my story mostly going to be about? What background information does my reader need? Work on your outline and then start drafting. And remember, friends, if you have trouble as you're writing, send me an email and we can find time to meet today.